Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, how are you doing? We got a bunch of friends here and Charlie, and we're going to have another chat on the mat here, which that rhyme thing sounds stupid and I don't like it and I don't think I'll ever say it again. We're going to chat with you and we happen to be sitting on a spongy surface. Got some friends that you've met before and know. My friend Dan Hart, my Jiu-Jitsu coach, his coach, Mr. Henry Akins, our new friend. I don't even know your last name, but it's Pedro
Munoz.
Munoz.
There you go.
Munoz. He likes large bananas and huevos. We'll talk about that later. Mr. Scott here. I was about to start the whole thing over. I did it twice yesterday too, because I've been talking about Scott with you and I just kept going back. That was a good intro until
Scott Fox. Have I introduced you to Scott Fox?
No.
Scott Fox. This is the best. Scott Fox was a SEAL Team 1 guy who then is on the TV program SEAL Teams as an actor. He acts like a SEAL after 20 years of being one. And his name is Scott Fox, and I'm Todd Fox, not related.
All right, well, we're still going right now.
We're in the room. When we're in the room together, that's constant. Say Scott. Hey Todd. And
yeah, well, that was
so I'm used to that.
But that's not what really happened here. Mr. Todd Fox, a lifelong friend of Mr. Akins, Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, owner of a company we did a recent podcast with, just finished up some training with. We'll talk more about that. And then my nephew Canaan, the guy that runs the shop for Gunfighter Gun Oil. And if any of you have trained with us out on the range in the last couple of years, you've probably seen him out there beating you with the guns. And that's your fault, not his. So we just thought we'd chat a little bit. We had a great training program this weekend that Todd ran based around his company, which is Protective Services, and how it applies to normal people. And we've got a huge disparity of jiu-jitsu skills here, a bunch of black belts and then some white belts. I don't know if you're really a white belt, but you wear one.
I'm a white belt.
Well, yeah, I can buy a belt and just put it on. He's like that dude that you see like the bullshit YouTube videos where the guy comes in the gym and he's got the white belt on, and then it's like the fact that you're also 7'4" and 472 pounds also may have some bearing on it.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm still a white belt after starting in 2014. Life got in the way, and it's been a journey, man. And the thing is, you just never stop learning. But the cool thing about being a white belt is, if you get your ass handed to you, there's nothing to prove. So just leave my white belt on. I don't care.
Yeah, I get it, man. So tell everybody a little bit about you, and then we'll introduce these other dudes since you're talking.
Well, so I was born and raised in Venezuela, Caracas. That's my hometown. My family, very similar to Todd Fox's life, is involved in executive protection. We own several companies. After coming here, started training jiu-jitsu, going to college. I met Todd, we connected. Pretty cool dude. And now I've been helping him a little bit with those trainings, and it's been working out pretty good, I think.
You're like the creepy big dude in the back that you're not sure if it's gonna shock knife you the whole time.
Well, the thing is, I warn you before it goes.
Or take my lunch.
And well, lunch is actually pretty good. I like that, the banana bars you gave me. But before I shock you, I tell you, taser. I mean, it's gonna happen, either way. And then we start speaking Spanish and moving around. The sequence of the training.
Don't go too deep into that.
Yeah, we can't.
Okay.
We can't. It's unpredictable.
It is. Based on the input. Dan, who are you?
Dan Hart, black belt under Henry here. And I met Todd and Pedro through Henry. We went down to St. Louis and did another training with Todd and was pretty blown away by it. So I came home, told my students about it. They were all super interested. So Todd was kind enough to come up here and do another 2-day seminar with us. So we just finished, as you said, and super pumped about this one. Everybody who did it loved it. So it was, very different than what we're used to with straight jiu-jitsu and taking into that world of, worrying about what could happen to our families, how to protect them, how to plan ahead of time, know what to look for, what to expect, and how to react. So.
How about you, Henry?
Henry Akins. I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Todd and I were roommates for many years in LA. We trained underneath Rickson Gracie. So I own a company called Hidden Jiu-Jitsu, which provides jiu-jitsu content. I do some camps, international camps and seminars all over the world.
How about you, sir?
Todd Fox.
Not Scott.
Yeah, not Scott anymore. I'm Todd. I'm a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu as well under Rodrigo Baggi. My roommate and very good friend Henry Akins introduced me to the guys you see sitting here, and Dan was kind enough to reach back out to me after doing some training with me, as he mentioned earlier, and connected some really awesome people this weekend. I'm a business owner. I own several businesses that are executive protection or protective security focused, and doing a lot of training with civilians now. Just released a new book in the last few months called Protection for and from Humanity.
I've got a signed copy. Canaan, how about you? What's your deal?
Like Mickey was saying, started working with Gunfighter, I think probably like 5 months ago. Been traveling around with him a lot, learning a lot about shooting, and kind of after doing that for a little bit, I realized that that was just a small segment of self-defense and, being able to protect yourself. So then I eventually started training with Dan and been learning a lot. Like he said, the learning never stops. Been pretty humbling.
Yeah. Get off of me. So as we started chatting today, we've all been together all weekend. We've been talking about everything. So to converse with you guys and not force a conversation covering the same ground, we started spitballing, like, what's going on in the world? What can we maybe offer just in our collective experiences that's a useful conversation? And Dan brought up kind of like the world events of how COVID is impacting businesses, relationships, finances, health, training, because gyms are shutting down, training's not going on, your business. So maybe let's just talk about that. Just throw something out there like COVID-19 in the world.
I think the biggest thing is being able to make a shift in your business. I know Todd, as he said, is now working with civilians. I primarily work in the hospitality sector, not the jiu-jitsu sector. So for me, as Mickey can tell you, my restaurants don't allow phone orders normally, which is frustrating to some people. But within 48 hours of the first shutdown,
for years.
we built a full website to offer delivery, to do carry-out orders. We made our bartenders delivery drivers, passed on fees to them. We ran a t-shirt drive to get the employees money. I think just like jiu-jitsu or a lot of the things Todd's taught us this weekend, I think it's all about shifting and doing things that work. I mean, I have people I have to take care of, not just my family, but I owe it to my employees to make sure they're okay, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen, not sit around and complain that a virus shut down what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Canaan had plans. We were talking about it with Todd earlier. He was supposed to be in Germany working this whole year. And that's kind of how, I'm glad that it worked out that way. It worked out better for everybody. We enjoy having you. But
Things happen for a reason.
what if somebody walked up and punched you in the face and just walked away? Would you be like, that was for a reason?
Maybe I'd
For the wrong reason. But it's for a reason.
teach me I need more training or
Oh,
something.
there you go. Okay. There's the silver lining. But you pivoted too.
Oh, yeah.
And made it work.
Yeah.
Your business.
Yeah, about 80% of my business is entertainment based, so music tours and films on location, and that essentially was shut down. So 80% of the business is gone, poof, which is why, as Dan mentioned, kind of we transitioned into a bit of the training realm, which is really cool because I get to now work with average, everyday, normal people, teaching them some of the skills and systems that we use in protection for their daily lives. And to be honest, man, it's really fulfilling. You know, to work with a group of guys, the class that you were in, and some of your students who you brought to training, man, they're telling me it's life-changing, but for me too, to see kind of that click moment happen. So it sucks financially, but a lot of other life lessons that I'm getting out of it, spending more time with some of the people that are really important, figuring out that I don't need some of the things that I thought I needed. It's a lesson, and yes, it sucks sometimes, but there's also some great points that I found along the way.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Henry?
Same with me. My business is pretty much shut down. I moved to Vegas a year ago, and the goal was to just continue doing seminars and camps, and so those large group trainings are basically done for the time being. So I've shifted a little bit more to doing small group trainings, having people come out to Vegas to visit me in smaller groups to do those trainings. But with the whole shutdown, and it kind of just reminds me, like, man, when I'm super busy, I'm always thinking, wow, I wish I had more time off. I'm always of that mindset, like, man, I'm so busy, I'm working all the time, I'm like grinding. I wish I had more time off to relax and do this stuff. And then all of a sudden you have all this gift of time, and then we're thinking like, oh man, I wish I was working. I wish I was working all the time. It's kind of like your mind plays tricks on you. So it's really just kind of going back to appreciating what you're given in that moment, right? So I've really had to kind of shift my perspective and just think like, wow, what a blessing that I have all this time to be able to spend with family, to be able to take care of the things that I need, right? Because you're constantly just working. And for me, giving back to others. And so now you kind of get to focus on like, what do I do for myself? How do I, just focus on myself, and what are the things that I really enjoy doing? And let me use that time to do those things. So it's been a blessing in disguise.
What was the story that you told me earlier on the podcast about the fisherman? Tell that story again.
I was down working in a place called Sinaloa, which is a state in Mexico, and I was taking some fishermen down for a trip because they have this lake that has massive largemouth bass, and so these rich businessmen will go down there, and I was taking them down. It's not a safe place, Sinaloa, and I was down there and I saw a lot of interaction and heard some stories, and one of the Americans was telling kind of a parable type story to another American, and he was telling a story of another American coming down to Mexico on vacation, going to the beach, and basically talking to the fishermen, a local fisherman. He said, well, to the local Mexican fishermen, you really need to take this to the next level. So you need to catch more fish, spend more time on the water, take more fish to the market, and eventually modify your business, go to wholesale, start selling direct to the larger kind of state operation, then maybe it'll become national, and then maybe international. You get a fleet of vessels, and now you got this massive operation, and in 20 years you'll have hundreds of millions of dollars. And the Mexican fisherman said, then what? And he said, well, then you can have long walks on the beach, you can have time with your family, you can play mariachi in the square, you can go fishing, which was already the life that the guy was living. And so a lot of times I get caught up in this shit, and I got to remind myself of that. And I thought that was a great story. I heard it, but actually I saw it at the same time in the place that we were in, and it was like, okay, those guys are happy, they're having a good time, and it looks like they're on vacation, and that's their life. It's simple, it's basic, and it's fulfilling for them.
I know Dan and I talk about this stuff a lot because we all work hard, but we both are self-employed and talk about all the chasing. It's like, man, I'm pretty content just having some coffee on the patio, or having a beer and shooting the shit, or going to the gym and getting super sweaty and having a pizza when you're done. Like, it doesn't have to be, I want a Ferrari, which there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you want in life that you don't have? I mean, past a certain point, I think they say like $75,000, there's no increase in happiness by making more money. And I mean, I always refer to it as a jet. Like, I don't want or need a jet. I drive a nice enough car, I live in a nice enough house, I like the things I do, I like my life. I don't want to work harder or more, or not see my family or friends, or get to train with you guys so that I can put more money in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not going to fill some hole that you need to fill. There's a dick joke in here. Yeah, you need to fill with mindset, with the way you think. And what do you think about that?
Well, a lot of people, they want to live their life through other people. Like Todd's life is Todd's life. That's not my life. I have to be happy for myself. Happiness is something that happens from within. You can buy moments, and that's completely fine. But when you lay down in bed at night, it's all about you.
When you say buy a moment, you mean like
have
go to a fancy restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, if we're driving a Ferrari, of course I'm going to be happy at that moment, But it all comes down to, what are you doing? Just like Henry said, like, what am I doing that makes me a better person? I'm growing for myself, I'm happy. And a lot of people confuse that, man. It's not healthy, and it really doesn't give you anything, because once that moment is not there, I mean, Todd's traveling over 100 countries a year. We stayed in a regular hotel. Sometimes you might not even have a hotel. I mean, we almost didn't have it, when we were stuck. And then you don't have that luxury. What are you doing? In Venezuela, sometimes you don't have half of the stuff you have here. You don't pick your food. You don't pick when you eat, if you eat. So if you have that happiness from within and you fulfill yourself, that's what makes the difference. You know, anything extra is just better.
Agreed. Your brain looks like it's spinning.
Oh, well, I just bought some GameStop and some A's. I'm probably gonna be rich next week. Peace out, guys. You can ride on my jet, Dan.
Perfect. I need friends with jets.
Yeah, that's even better. I don't want a jet. I just want friends with jets.
You guys can ride on my private jet.
I like it. Canaan, what's like? You got you younger guys. Like you're like either of you remember pre 9/11 world?
Yeah.
I don't personally. 9/11 is like a pretty blurry memory for me. I remember like getting home from school, seeing it on the news, but other than that, not really.
I was actually here for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in San Antonio, Texas. My family was here. My father was in the military back home. He was sent here and Fort Lackland in Texas. It's an Air Force base, I believe. I remember driving through the fort and seeing all those gigantic missiles, you know, just driving around because they thought that was going to be the next target, you know. But I do remember prior 9/11, completely different country.
Mm-hmm.
Completely different country. Things changed a lot.
When that happened, I had a cell phone. I just am remembering I had a cell phone, but the cell phone allowed me to make a phone call. There was no texting. I mean, it was like just starting to be able to send a text. I still had a pager that you could, from a computer, say, Todd, please meet me at headquarters, you know, and it would send the, or you could check if you had spent the money, you get the sports ticker or like the weather would scroll by. And in 20-something years now, we all have this connectivity. Like your joke about the stock, we were talking about it last night. You don't wait for who has a newspaper subscription? Who frickin', well, I better get home and turn on, 7 o'clock news so I know what happened. I mean, damn, it's like, it's now, overload. It's like your sensory overload from yesterday. It's like, that's what we're doing all day long to ourselves.
Yeah, it's deprivation on one side of it, and then it's overload on the other side
Yeah.
of it, and it's imbalanced.
It's, makes for an unhealthy person. And then you try to, why am I not happy? Because you're just like pouring hot water down your throat all day trying to breathe. You guys can chime in, talk, it's not. I don't really have anything to say. Is this where we're at? Do we need booze? Do we need to do shots? I got some good
What you
bourbon.
got?
I got all kinds
Talk
of
about socks.
socks. What is with your socks? There's a good cut point. Drew likes nice socks too. It says a lot about a man that wears socks like that. I know people would want to say, well, it means he's really sure of himself. but there's something else.
What else is there?
There's something else.
I like pizza. Pepperoni. You don't have to ask me for walking around again what kind of pizza you want. You just already know. I saw your socks.
Yeah, I really appreciate a guy that saves me the time of asking a question, what coat's your favorite pizza? You've let us know.
Yesterday you wanted pineapple.
Pineapple. You're
I'll let
hungry?
my wife know I wear ones with boobs on them.
Honey, where's my other boob sock? I missed my boob sock. I think, we're talking about, though, like, this is all stuff, I think, Jiu-Jitsu, back to that for a minute. We hear, or I hear, like in our classes, Canaan brought it up, the gun, Todd mentioned it in our discussion earlier. It's just a tool. It's just a thing, just like a car or even a bank account. Money is inanimate. What you do with it creates or doesn't. And I'll see people like, oh man, yeah, I need to add jiu-jitsu to my toolbox. And it's like, nah, you're missing it, man. It's not like you're not going to go take jiu-jitsu off the shelf or boxing or anything. You're not going to take fitness off the shelf. Like, that's like this global lifestyle thing. Like, let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I have a question for Dan. Yesterday you were talking about a
You
pineapple.
already said pepperoni.
Hold on. He was mentioning that once you get your black belt, you're supposed to.
Not with your black belt. This is the thing where people give their jiu-jitsu instructors pineapples. Have you seen this?
No.
Have you seen this?
Mm-mm.
Google it. It's a thing.
All right, good.
But it's a thing that two multi-stripe black belts have never heard
I'm
of.
telling you, there's a whole Reddit thing. on
This
it.
is some shit.
up.
This is some-
We're in all these years.
You're gonna get pineapple too.
I don't know everything about jiu-jitsu, and I often mention that when I'm teaching. I don't know everything, so
But that's
I'm
an
always
interesting,
open to learn.
an interesting point. You talk about your a white belt for 30 years or something now. But,
Not 30, don't be a jerk.
you know, for me at least, I mean, I've only been a black belt a year, but the more you learn, the deeper you see how far the universe of jiu-jitsu is. And it's like, when you start out, you think like, well, I'm going to get a black belt. It's going to take 10 years. By the time I get a black belt, I'm going to know all the jiu-jitsu at least. And maybe there's stuff I don't want to do, but I'm going to have this masterful approach to all this. And that's not what happens.
I kind of see it, and this is my interpretation, and it's not just jiu-jitsu, but I think it's any combat-related activity where people spend a lot of time in close proximity challenging themselves. Like it could be like a club of like long-distance runners or anything like that. It's like a language average people don't get to understand. Like you're training this weekend. All of us, while you did things to us that were completely uncomfortable, and no, I mean it was cool though. It sucked. It was not as at the worst. It was as bad as Dan crushing me for 5 minutes straight and his hairy breast in my mouth, you know, and him like whispering,
Don't talk about Saturday night.
eat, you know, like, and in that though, like, not just being able to deal with being uncomfortable, like, it's like a language of understanding something at a different level of humanity, not just on the ego level or the keeping up with the Joneses level. It's like, okay, here's people that come together that kind of are sick of all that. And it's almost like religion in a sense. Not I'm looking for something deeper, but I'm looking to go deeper. Does that resonate what I'm saying?
Everybody wants to go deeper, right?
There's a dick joke.
Here it is. It does, though.
I heard from your friend Scott that there is some treatments available at the hospital that can help with that.
I heard that too. Probably check
Yes,
it out a little
in
bit
Mexico,
more later.
Tijuana, Mexico. You know, one of the big things that I took away from this weekend was the training specifically, and we were talking about this, is that like what I do, jiu-jitsu, and I've been focused on for the last 25 years, and what, you know, all the gun stuff that you do and how you're training people is just kind of an aspect of all of our desire for self-preservation, right? The idea, basically protection. How do we protect ourselves and how do we protect, you know, the ones that we care about? And that was a huge thing for me over the weekend, is just getting deeper into the mindset of protection and recognizing what are the things that can go wrong. How do you set up, you know, things to keep you and your family safe? And it's such a fundamental aspect of I mean, just even fear itself, right? We were talking about that book, the Gavin de Becker book. That is a mechanism of protection for us, you know? And so it's yeah, it really, really struck me like, man, all of these things that we do and that we've invested so much time in are just mechanisms and tools to be able to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. And like, you know, the course this weekend was just adding another huge layer kind of on top of that, right? And especially super helpful since, you know, we're all going to Costa Rica in a couple weeks, understanding how people in different countries might operate. And, you know, people have just such a false sense of security living here in the United States because, man, we're one of the safest countries in the world. You know, many people have not traveled it as extensively as you know, or even close. Todd, like Pedro was saying, travels, you know, probably visits 100 countries a year with all the tours and all the stuff that you do. But, you know, realizing like, man, when you travel to different countries, things are different. And, you know, we were having that conversation about cost of life in other countries. And you were saying like in some cities, you know, costs less than $1 to have someone whacked. And most Americans have no clue of that, right? And so it's important to know those things when you're traveling and visiting other countries. So,
Well, I'd say though, even on a domestic level, I think most people are completely unaware of how much danger they are or could be in at any given time. I mean, I remember reading a story. I didn't hear Pedro tell this story, but I read it in a magazine or book or something. Pedro Sauer talking about one of his first lessons in jiu-jitsu and taking the bus home and looking around and being like, man, who knows this stuff? Like, I got messed up so bad, thought I was a pretty tough guy in training, and like there's people out there that know this, and I think the same thing happens with doing classes with Todd of, you know, wow, I was really unaware I should be looking for this or looking for that or paying attention. Something as simple as common sense of you're walking in and out of places looking at your phone And I think Todd alluded to in one of the trainings, people always say, well, that guy came out of nowhere. Nobody comes out of nowhere. You're not paying attention to what things are going on. And I think once you start to realize, whether it's in jiu-jitsu or this type of protection, how vulnerable you might be, then, you know, you have an obligation to your family and to yourself, I think, to train yourself up and seek out more training and try and, you know, become less likely to be a victim.
I think there's two there's two major ways to have confidence, and I think one of them is either by ignorance or by knowledge. You know, there's a lot of people that they're super confident because of their ignorance. They're not aware of what's really happening.
False confidence.
Absolutely. Like, you see this super big guy, you know, lifting a lot of weights and walks into this BJJ gym and sees this 120 pounder and, yeah, I can go for him, you know, it's not a problem, and then gets choked out 50 times, you know. And then with knowledge, the thing is, it's up to you to determine what type of confidence you want to have. You know, if you take those steps to make sure that, like Dan said during the weekend, how to be least likely to, or more likely to survive. That's all I'm looking for, you know. So once you get that training, you're just getting the odds better for you.
Makes sense. It's interesting when you run into people, the language I'm talking about, and I'm cultivating this in my mind as I'm talking, but it's like, not the lingo, like you use a lot of mill LEO speak, not that kind of language, but it's like an artist or a musician uses a language that other artists and musicians understand, right? People of different cultures communicate in different ways, and the culture of combat sports, but also of sports where people, like at your gym, our gym, we commented, guys were talking, I think Brian said it the other night after we were, you know, getting dressed, cooling down. He said, you know, I like this group of people because everybody here cares about each other beyond, you know, if you're not here, I can't get a good training. They actually care about, like, I hope Henry's doing well. I hope Todd's kids have a good life. Like, we care about each other, and it's not just competition. It's like, it's a common denominator that's used for self-development and growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a fact, man. It's a different type of community. It's a different vibe, and I think you were kind of onto it earlier, but when you're rolling around with somebody, when you're making that connection with somebody, it's not normal for us in modern times to do that, but it is a natural thing, and it's another human, and I'm looking in the eyes, and I'm moving, and I'm feeling, and we're pushing each other. I'm trying to do something to you that's going to be bad or painful, and it's a lesson for you, it's a lesson for me, and you do something to me, I got to get back up, and after you beat me up, then we're tapping hands and we're going again. And it's a different connection, it's a different feeling. And after you said that and Henry started talking, I don't know if you noticed what he started talking about. He started talking about mindset, and then you started talking about a couple other components, all the stuff that we were just talking about. And so we're kind of on that same wavelength with these ideas and these feelings and these experiences. And I think jiu-jitsu is one thing, and obviously we all share that, but one thing that gets you to that level quicker. And this is also something we talked about. You have that camaraderie, you have that physical fitness, you have the stress relief, you have the confidence boost, you have all those elements, and people like that get to experience that on the levels that we have here based on luck and getting access to certain things, have a different vibe, have a different feeling, or operating on a different frequency. Not that it's better or worse, but we're understanding each other better based on those experiences.
What do you think about that, Canaan? So like, you've done sports, you snowboard, you ski, you've done extended backcountry backpacking for weeks on end, you've traveled around the globe, but that you did some martial arts as a teenager.
Yeah, not really quite the same though. I mean, it was pretty eye-opening at first because it's something I'm not really used to at all, being smothered by another human, you know. But just like the little victories that you get once, you know.
Talk about one of those, like what's a little victory?
So like the other night I finally got a sit-up sweep, or actually even better, when I finally got somebody to tap. I mean, I've been going like 4 months and people have tapped, but not like legitimately trying to defend me.
Cam legitimately took a guy's back multiple times and finished him from the back multiple times. Not somebody whose first day it was, somebody who's been actually training longer than him. I saw one of them. And
yeah, just to do that after going for months, you know, felt amazing. It was a huge confidence booster, and just to see the work pay off, because it, you know, it tests your patience. But I do think that's one of my good qualities is being a patient guy. So, you know, I endured it. I kept going, and just to get that little victory was pretty huge. Yeah.
How do you feel that you're patient, but you force yourself to endure? Like you puked a few times last summer when you started coming to the gym. That's okay. I mean,
A lot of people puke, buddy. I've seen a lot of people puke. That's pretty normal.
Yeah, but then like a lot of people go, this sucks. I just puked. Why would I come back here when I could be home? You know.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do jiu-jitsu is
not to puke anymore.
Well, to not be a bitch. Like, so when that happened, it was like, well, I could be a bitch and just quit, or keep going until I don't puke.
Therein lies the rub. Like, are you a puker, or and if you are, are you willing to come back and puke some more?
What I think jiu-jitsu tests you, and one of the quotes Todd had this weekend that I've seen in his other classes is, you know, every time you endure something, it gets easier the next time to endure, and every time you quit, it gets easier to quit. So you find out pretty fast. I mean, jiu-jitsu, in my experience, I mean, I understand the jokes about people getting their blue belts and quitting, but if someone's training 3 to 5 days a week for 4 to 6 months.
Say that joke real quick, because a lot of people don't understand that, so that they understand the context of what you're about to say.
A lot of people say that once someone gets a blue belt, they disappear, you never see them again. A lot of people quit at blue belt. That's not personally in my gym, but my experience through going. You guys have a lot more years than me. I don't know. You see a ton of that, but I think normally if I get somebody in for 6 months, they're in.
Yeah, I see that at our gym.
And so, just so the listener understands, it's like this big push of energy. I come, get crushed, I puke, I work past my fears and inhibitions, and then there's this big recognition of achieving like that first big step in jiu-jitsu. I got a little color around my waist.
Well, to clarify, I mean, jiu-jitsu is different than most martial arts. A blue belt at most gyms that, you know, I know takes about 2 years to get if you're training pretty regularly. You know, if you're a D1 wrestler and you come in, yeah, that's different, or you're doing a bunch of privates, but you're training 3 to 5 days a week, 2 years, about average. So it's not other martial arts that we kind of joke about sometimes where my 9-year-old niece gets a black belt in a year and a half.
Right.
You know, your first belt, your first recognition of changing what's on your waist takes, you know, a couple years.
When we started, I remember blue belts were deities. They were I couldn't comprehend what it was to be a black belt, but a blue belt was like, oh my God.
Yeah. When we first started, I mean, it was like purple belts were the highest, you know, belts around.
There's a black belt in, and I know that was a purple belt in '99 or something, and he'd come to the gym to train, and I'd like,
Gotta be touching a little bit.
Yeah, I remember the first time I enrolled with a purple belt. I've only been training 10 or 11 years, and was an aggressive guy, nice guy, but I remember, I mean, I think I was a couple stripe white belt. Our gym wasn't big, was mainly all white belts. I wasn't the best guy, wasn't the worst guy, but I hold my own. This guy just
tossed you about, huh?
And my coach, you know, would roll easier with us and let us get stuff. This guy was not giving up an inch, and I was like, I'll never, ever be as good as that guy. It's not possible. I'm never going to be that good.
But you continued. So you were on a thread there talking about the analogy of white belts or blue belts quitting, and I wanted to make sure that you clarified that so people understood what the heck you were talking about. Do you remember where you were going?
You did after I was done. I was just saying that, you know, generally speaking, it's humbling, but you find out pretty fast, I think, if you've got it and if you've got what it takes to endure, or you quit and make an excuse of it's not for me, or I was uncomfortable being close to people, or the schedule doesn't work, or we have day classes. Well, yeah, those don't work either.
The mat and the target and the timer and the scale, like those kinds of things, like people don't like accountability, and all those things hold us accountable.
Well, we talked about that before too. I mean, I was a distance runner in high school and college, ran track and cross country. I mean, I can't pretend that I'm better than someone 30 years ago that I never played against in basketball. I know what my mile time is, and they know what their mile time is, and that's pretty cut and dry.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Either you lifted the weight or you did not. How long can you hold your breath? Those such things. Yeah. What do you got to say about that?
I don't know, I think that's probably true. And also the thing with the blue belt related to that is once you get that promotion, and if you don't do jiu-jitsu, you're not going to understand this, but once you get that promotion, there's a target on your back. Now you can't lose to a white belt. And that's responsibility and accountability for taking the belt and keeping the standard, and that may be one of the problems, and it also may be a very American thing. You know, I don't know if that problem exists everywhere. The joke's definitely American, but
What do you think about that, Henry?
I think, I think with, that a large percentage of people quitting during the blue belt, I think in general at a lot of schools, the time frame to go from white to blue belt, which is just like a very beginner level to get to a very fundamental level, usually tends to be quicker. And the blue belt, I know at a lot of schools, I know at Rickson's, that was a long belt. A lot of people spent a lot of time from blue to purple, so you have a huge, it's a much bigger gap. So I know at a lot of schools that tends to be a standard. People will spend more time as a blue belt, way more time, multiples of time. I know some places it's 6 months to a year to go from white to blue, but then the blue belt, I've seen guys spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years as a blue belt. So I think that probably has something to do with it. But yeah, I think there's added pressure too. Like Pedro was talking about earlier, he's like, hey, I'm a white belt, and there's no pressure if I lose. But a lot of this too is, I think, self-imposed pressure. I've tapped to lower belts plenty of times, and
Is there any of that on video that we can see?
there's some pretty close ones on video. But it's it's
Everybody
part of the
loses
learning.
too, man.
It's
That's
part of
just
the
it.
learning process, and that's the thing is, like, especially the way that I try to emphasize to train, the way that I train myself, where I will, in training, I'm putting myself into uncomfortable situations. I'm allowing things to happen that normally wouldn't happen, so that I get that exposure. I get that, we were talking about inoculating yourself to different stressors, right? So I'll let guys have my back and put their arm around my neck and see if I can get out. See if I, let guys get an armbar on me and see if I can still get out without. So that's, sometimes I get out and sometimes I don't, and the goal for me is to learn from the times that I don't get out, right? If I didn't get out, what did I do wrong? What can I improve? And that was a huge part of the training this weekend. It was a very different environment, like in fighting now, because I've been doing it so long and I'm very, very comfortable in those types of physical altercations. But there's other stressors, real world stuff that we were exposed to this weekend, where there's noise and lights and things going on, and crazy, it's chaos, where a lot of mistakes were made, and it's a huge opportunity for me to see, wow, okay, these are the things that I need to improve to deal with these other situations that might occur in life. So I think so much of it has to do with the person's mindset and how they deal with failure. You can either see failure as a opportunity to learn and grow from, or it can be crushing and defeating.
That's such a simple ism, but it's like we were talking about the debrief on your final exercise yesterday. I could have done better, and you fixate on the failure points, but like that particular drill, I'm guilty of it, like not just in that drill, but like rolling or wrestling with somebody that might be a higher belt, but I know I'm physically more capable of stopping this person. I'm stronger, I'm younger, or whatever. And like, I don't give a about that cotton color thing. Like in my head, and you fixate on that rather than like, how do I get better about it? And it's like it's a waste of time. Like, well, instead of being mad that I didn't find the thing or finish the task, how can I improve that?
yeah. And I want to validate what Henry's saying, because you have to have these exposures, which means you're going to open yourself up to these vulnerabilities, these flaws that you have. You can't identify the flaw. If I'm using my best move all the time and I win with that, as soon as it goes wrong, I'm screwed. So looking for that means I'm going to expose myself to people. And I don't know any black belt that's honest, that tells the truth. It hasn't been caught. They get caught. You get caught at every level, and sometimes it's against somebody that's not as good as you, because you create a vulnerability to make yourself better. And you and I talked about this today on the podcast. if I was to do the same drill you guys went through, I would have failures too.
We all talked about that.
I know I would have failures. Yes, of course. Thank you. Failure as an instructor for this guy. But, it's the vulnerability exposure is important. I got to put myself through it. And even with something like a shock knife, like when I set it and it was set low, but when I set it, I'm touching myself because I'm going to do it to you and I want to make sure that I can take it before I do it to you. There's some good points, and I think it's important that you said that stuff because people need to hear that.
Yeah.
If you want to test it, you take it away. Just like if you remember old days, Rickson putting his hands in his belt or telling you what he's going to finish it with. And I try to do that like when I'm rolling with a white belt. Hey, I can't do my best 3 moves. I've got to do this one specific thing or from one specific position. And it starts to get narrowed. So I make it hard for myself. And in that process, you're going to lose positions or maybe get submitted. And it's important because guys now they hide that, and you're just here. This is what it is, and what you're saying is true. So it's good to hear that from people.
Anybody have anything else to add to that?
Well, going back to what you were talking about, from my experience, being a bigger guy in lower level jiu-jitsu, it doesn't really. It makes a big difference being a bigger guy.
Just raw strength.
Yeah, and the weight, just the weight you carry. So my first year's training, I was very focused on using a lot of strength and all that. And you soon realize, dude, you're gonna get old sometime. Mm-hmm. So if you learn how to roll, completely basic, without overusing that strength and power and being more efficient, you're able to go longer. And by the time you get, let's say, 60 years old, you still have that skill set. You're not dependent on that raw strength. Mm-hmm. You're gonna be weak sometime. You can be sick, something might have happened, your hand is tied, or something, and then what are you going to do about it, So trying to depend less and less, going back after what you were saying, like, I can control this dude. There's a lot of guys that I'm physically stronger than them, but I'm not going with my full strength because I know what the result's going to be, but I just want to improve in my movement, improve in my skills, and just sharpen those tools, man. Todd was talking about, I'm not going to say names, but this white belt, was it a white belt that, got you in a particular spot? You put yourself in a situational move, and he was bragging about getting you, although he's never even passed your guard. It's not really jiu-jitsu. You put yourself in the worst case scenario. It's going to happen sometime.
Yeah, here, get on my back, put the choke in. Okay, now I'm going to try to defend it. And then I fail, like, yeah, I got him. Like, yeah, you got me, good. Good job. Okay, sure. It doesn't matter. Your claim to fame in life is that I had you on my back to start and I had you with the choke. Okay, good.
Well, what happens in training doesn't matter. I mean, the whole purpose for training is so that we're effective in real life, right? We're effective when we need it. We're effective when it really counts. Training is just a method to develop that so that if I ever need to use it in a real life situation, it works. And so, obviously, we all like to kind of pat ourselves on the back if we feel like we have victories in training, but I mean, the whole purpose for training is really to succeed in life, and it goes back to that protection mindset, right? It's like preservation of life, which I know you talk about a lot, right? It's like, hey, is this going to help me? Is this effort that I'm putting into this activity going to help me to be able to survive when I really need it? And so that type of training that I do as well, let guys get on my back, sink in a rear naked choke, let things lock it in, and then I'm going to see if I can get out, because I might be walking down the street someday and some guy who maybe I might have offended in the past sees me and runs up behind me and grabs me around the neck. Mm-hmm. It's not always going to be a fair fight, and it's not always going to be face to face, and I'm not always going to know it's coming. So when that happens, can I still get out? And the only way that you're going to know is if you train it. Right?
I think there's so many analogies to life there too. Like we talked earlier, I can deal with this because I've dealt with something that was more painful or uncomfortable, or that thing, and not just like, ooh, it's a confidence booster, but also like I've now developed tools that in this moment of discomfort, I can compartmentalize. Would it be a good idea for me to scream out the window at that guy? Or would it be a good idea for me to hang up on that customer and ruin a relationship? No, I can think, what's important now, as you said earlier, we use that acronym too. Like, And it's a great tool that's useful in so many other, I talk about it with our students, your wife and you getting in an argument, you can find some center and breathe and relax, like you guys tell us white belts, relax, you're stiff, relax, man, I don't need to yell at you, babe, let's go to dinner. Yeah.
Listen, I just need to tell you something. I will not be.
Let's change gears. We'll ask everybody the exact same question. This is just something that I've been thinking about because somebody asked me something similar to this online, and it was rather irritating when the guy asked it to me based in the context, and it was like this political discussion created around something I posted on our Instagram account. And this guy misunderstood what I was saying, so he was like, basically, well, what's your answer, hotshot? It was kind of like that. And I thought, that's actually a really good question because I don't have an answer for what he's talking about. But what he said was, if you were president instantly today, what would you do? Like, what would you do? So like, Canaan, if you were president, if tomorrow you were inaugurated President Canaan Holdener, like, what?
That's a pretty deep question. I think
You
looking for short-term
I don't mean
results?
give us a whole. So I guess we have to put some parameters on here. You can do one thing. What would you do? That's it within the context of law. You're not a king. You are the president.
I think something that's lacking a lot in our country is the ability to decipher good information from bad. So I think maybe some sort of education program that teaches kids how to. This article is bullshit. That one isn't. Or even just things that you see on the news.
Teaching critical thinking.
Yeah, being able to pick out bias, maybe.
So you would create you wouldn't tell the kids what information is bullshit, but how to pick.
How to spot bias. I think some sort of education along those lines would be very helpful.
Okay. I got a follow-up question when we're done.
Okay.
How about you?
Probably something to do with simplifying the law because we've added so many laws to the books that complicate things. Something that would remove red tape in certain areas. There's so much bureaucracy now obviously I'm a fan of the Constitution and something that was intended to be a certain way, and now we've just complicated it. It makes it so difficult to do really basic things now, so I'd probably focus on that.
So,
or if not, is Monica Lewinsky still available?
we just talked about her at the gym like a week or two ago. That's a good one. Monica, if you're out there, tourprotection.com.
Or at Tour Training on Instagram.
DM? How about you?
And that's a hard question, man. I mean, they've both reached some good topics there. I think one of the first things that I would
You only get one.
Well, the first thing I would approach right now, I mean, the United States by far is the best country in the world. I'm just gonna say that right there. I mean, there's no other way around. And I'm not even, initially from here. But I would try to approach the cultural disconnect that we're having right now. We need to put everything aside and just realize we're brothers and sisters, man. Like, there's no need for us to have hate, among ourselves. Our biggest problem comes from within. If we can control that, man, there's nothing stopping us,
How would you do that?
It's not a one-day thing. It's going to be generational.
How would you start doing it?
So piggybacking from what he said about the media and the critical thinking, also giving options. Like, for example, we were talking about this in the car. They're talking about free college, student loans. There's ways of doing things, You can promote educational, resources for people, but then they can bring it back and reinsert that knowledge into the communities, Like, for example, if you go to school for criminology, you got your PhD, right? Okay, after a few years, let's say there's a program right now, I'm not sure the name, that after 10 years of service, that your student loans get forgiven, Well, serve some time, like the military and like police, serve some time for the United States, teaching that, at a decent cost. Because a lot of those professors, they're making 100, 150 grand a year, and then they want their student loans forgiven, So reinsert that knowledge into those places that maybe they're not the highest level university, but when you get that knowledge there, we can reach the true numbers, you know,
Okay.
because there's a lot of misinformation going into our people, man.
I dig it. How about you, Henry?
That's a tough question.
Jiu-Jitsu
because
for all.
I'm not.
Monday to Friday.
Black belts for everyone.
I think Roosevelt was trying to do that already, right? Jiu-Jitsu for everyone. Free Joe Exotic.
Come on, Carol.
What happened? How come Trump didn't pardon him? Pardon everyone else. What happened to
You're
Joe
super
Exotic?
insightful and thoughtful. You're looking at deeper things all the time. I know there's something in your head or heart.
Gosh, there's so many issues facing our country right now. I mean, the two main things I see is
You get one.
The one.
There's a reason.
He's a black
There's
belt, he picks.
there's a reason I'm saying it. You get one.
What's more important? The education system. Fix the education system.
How would you fix it?
I think that the education system is so outdated, meaning it's, as a teacher myself, I know that students have different strengths and weaknesses. They learn differently. And what we're doing is we're forcing everyone
To
to
learn
try
the same
to
way.
be the same. Different people have different. So I'll give you an example. When I was young, 5th grade, 6th grade, I hated history. It was my worst subject. Now I'm completely fascinated
You
by
love
history.
it.
Like history books are my favorite books to read. And so that's the other thing is we try to put force upon these students that they have to be at this level at different periods in their life. At this, it just doesn't make sense. I saw a thing with Elon Musk talking about how he's raising his kids and how he's teaching his kids, and it just made a lot of sense. It's just allow them to learn, allow them to have fun. They should make learning fun. I think this whole thing of kids going to school all day and then coming home with all of this homework to do, I mean that, and then they have no time for social life. And then
No time
also
for exercise, no time for
well,
play,
and
no
the
time
things
for
too
dreaming.
that look, if you think about what are the most important things in life for happiness, none of that is taught in schools. Like how to have financial independence, how to establish, like, have good finances. That's not taught in schools. How to have good relationships is not taught in schools, right? How to live a healthy life is not taught in schools. How to eat healthy, how to, exercise. They have PE, but nutrition is not taught in schools, right? Disease prevention. So all of these things that are, I think, crucial to happiness.
So you're talking about a complete revamp of the American education system.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But if you think about it, that's the future of our country.
Of the world, really, because
It's-
we lead
right.
the world.
We lead the world. So that's the future of our country. It's a future of the world. And so how do we create that? How do we create more happiness? How do we create, and even talking to Big Brian yesterday, who's, an assistant principal, and the struggles that he's having trying to teach, be an assistant principal in the inner cities. Teach people how to be happy, man. Give them the skills that they need to have happiness in life. Right?
I dig it. How about you, Dan?
I would make a mandatory high school class on interest.
Go a little deeper into that.
I think most people that I deal with on a level of employees or even sometimes friends do not understand, for one, compound interest. They don't understand how credit cards work, how much money you end up paying. They don't understand how mortgages work, and they certainly don't understand how student loans work. And I think if people were given not the option, they have the option, but the understanding of, well, if I were to work and invest X amount per week and make X amount of a return on it, at this time I'd end up with here. If I borrow this much through college and produce no income and have to pay this much over time, it ends up costing me this. And start to teach them to understand those numbers, which they intentionally don't teach kids and intentionally don't teach adults, so people don't really know what the true cost of things is. Or, on the other side of it, if they're able to, even as a young person, invest $20 a week into an ETF or something, or into a stash, which we've talked about, Vanguard or whatever, and have that money put aside, because wealth is built over time. Everybody wants to be, millionaire or whatever. Let's truly teach people to understand, what is, and to read the shit you're signing.
Unless you buy GameStop or AMC.
So, some of the things you guys are
Guys.
talking about, I think I agree with everything everybody said, but I think all of them, from my perspective, parents should be doing all of these things. But we have the education system we have because parents are people and people are fallible, right?
But think about what's going on nowadays, where you have two parent households where both parents are at work, or you have a lot of single family.
Let me finish my,
right?
so that was my point. It's like, so we have this because we created this whole ecosystem where moms and dads are chasing this carrot that's continually running away, and the kids. So I think these are all good things. And all of you, maybe if you went home and you thought about it, and I'm not some, like oracle of truth, but I want to drive this point home. I think if we all thought about it more, maybe we'd come up with something different. But all of you came up pretty quick with something. And I know what I would do, which doesn't matter for this conversation. Why aren't we doing it? Why the aren't we doing it if those things are that important to us? Like your thing, man, that could probably be like I was thinking about it, and you know way more about the interest and compound interest and how that would be explained in layman's terms. That could probably be like a 15-minute soundbite once a week for the student. Like, why don't we create that and get like the local school board? We know all the people to do that. Like, we literally know the
I'll
people.
tell you what, I'm not the president.
You don't have to be.
I'll tell you what,
You and I have also been
nobody
involved.
wants that job. If you look at the candidates that we have,
I'm not even talking about people. Why are we not implementing these things? Like Canaan, for how old he is, I would put him up in a game of logic against most master PhD level people. Just because he's
Compliment. Thank you.
well, he's super. He like when he said he's patient. The kid's patient. He needed a new car. He's never you're not in debt. You pay all your shit on time. You've got good credit, and just a kid. But went to college and got a business degree. But that doesn't mean anything in the sense of you making good choices. But he invests money, and he'll like research the shit out of it. But he needed a car. He didn't go buy a $50,000 car. He found a car that was in his price range, and then looked at 400 of them until he found one that was like a good running vehicle that he could afford, and the payment was low. Like most kids are like, that man, I want spinners or whatever's cool now, and they go blow the. I'm like 20 years behind, but you get what I'm saying.
But within the public sector, Mickey, you understand as well as anybody how hard it is to implement change.
But
We're going to get a committee to get a committee to get a committee.
Which is what I was talking about with the red tape and the bureaucracy.
So then let's think about that. When you said red tape, I didn't want to derail you. Where does red tape come from? Like it comes from
a lack of accountability.
But it comes from some person going, hey, wait a sec. Like everybody gets a say so. And so like, well, wait a minute. I'm with the fire department, and before you give that building permit, I want to make sure that these things are in place because I don't want my firemen dying. Hey, wait a minute. I'm with the water department, and I want to make sure, everybody gets a say. So, I mean, sometimes red tape, kind of like we were talking about the investment stuff. Oversight's great until oversight affects us, but then like, well, what about freedom and liberty? But yeah, these companies are screwing us because there's no oversight and well, now red tape's good until you want to be the guy shorting stock and making tons of money. Then like, what's with the oversight and the red tape, man? You know what I mean? What's good for the goose? So I'm not like, it wasn't like a challenge, like, why aren't you guys doing things? But like what if 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. You were just saw ahead.
I'm training my daughter to do it. My daughter's gonna. That's her focus, and her goal is she wants to get into politics, and she wants to.
I'm not talking about politics.
Well, but unfortunately, on the law level, that's where things happen, right? That's
I
where
disagree.
things
So for me, politics is theater. Policy comes from work, and so policy comes from like politicians. They're the actor. There's a intern or a lawyer that's writing this shit and pushing it. The actor, the elected person that's having the dinners and shaking babies' hands. I'm not talking about politics. I just chose the president to put us in that frame of mind. But like, what if every one of us deeply instilled in our children or those around us the things we're talking about? And then instilled in them, hey, this is cool enough that you should. I'm just spitballing.
But isn't he saying what we came to last night when Brian was asking the question, like, how do I affect change? And the answer in the end is, I start with my environment, the people around me. So Henry says, my daughter. So he starts there, and then hopefully she affects the change too, because it's a ripple
And I
effect.
didn't mean to cut you off, Coach. I just didn't like where you were going.
Do it again.
You're gonna pay, you know you're gonna pay for that.
You know we're training right
But
after
we've
this.
talked about this a lot before, Mickey. I mean, we can affect politics on a local level. I can call the mayor, go meet with the mayor of Woodstock in a town of 26,000 people. He'll take the meeting. Might not listen to me, but I can affect the small town. I can't affect national politics. So
Drew, can we affect national politics? Can you and I affect national politics if we wanted to?
Yes, but
But I don't want
it's
to.
complicated.
How much is it gonna cost, Drew?
I'm gonna ask my buddies on Wall
much is it
Street
gonna
bets
cost?
tonight to see if we can do it.
So what we're doing, what are we really doing? We're saying why I'm never going to be a black belt because it takes time, it takes energy, it takes me explaining to my wife why it's important to go to the gym. It costs money. It's going to cause me physical damage and harm. I'm going to need to eat right and probably not drink so much beer. I'm going to have to, all we're doing is coming up with excuses, fellas. Sorry, but that's what I'm hearing.
How's your shoulder, man?
I completed the exercise though. Ish. But there was no parameters given. Nobody said deceit
It was
cannot be used.
You know, we
No,
expected a certain level of honor.
Guile and cunning. I was in a position where survive and escape was
He was hurt. He couldn't do some stuff.
yes and no. I mean, I still continued. You gave me something else to do.
I did.
I knew that I
Because I
needed
didn't believe you.
good use of that shoulder. Anyway, we'll talk about that offline. What he's right now. I'm not going to say that. It would be bad. Not for anything else but me. No, what I'm saying here is I feel like every one of us is so completely capable because we've exhibited it in our own life. So like, yes, on that little level, and what you're saying, it is hard to affect shit outside, but it's hard. It's not impossible. It's just hard.
I agree with you. Anything, I mean, given the context that each of us are capable of far more than what we think we can, and we can have it bigger, but it's like, why don't we have people why aren't you flying people to Mars or flying people to the moon?
It's not
Right?
important to me.
Might not be, but it hasn't done yet because most people don't want to do what Elon Musk is doing, the amount of time and effort and energy that he puts into, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be like Elon Musk, but the guy's sleeping 2 hours a night and he's sleeping on the floor of the Tesla factory. Most people don't want to make that sacrifice. And, they talk about those people that are running Fortune 500 companies and the amount of time and sacrifice that they make of their family to be able to achieve that level of success. I think most people are just not willing to sacrifice. There's other things that are more important, right? Like, sure, we could do that, but what type of time commitment would that take? And
So
is
maybe-
it worth
maybe I
sacrificing
should've-
your friends and family and other things? Because
100%.
we are limited. We all are limited by time, right? We all have 24 hours a day.
So there's the next part of it. In what capacity are we willing and capable to apply action to these things? And really my goal in the exercise is just making, not so much you dudes, because you all get it, but like people listening, they think about stuff and then it's just like, that's hard. Or who cares what I have to say? Or
But again, we keep doing this circle. If we go back to dinner a couple nights ago, and you were telling a story, and somebody didn't believe that you got that meeting that you got, and he demanded to know how you got it, and it was a phone call. You started with that personal action, right? And then that made that thing happen. And so I think, we all agree, because we're all very action-oriented people, it starts with us and the people we affect around us. And to take what you're saying, if I am away from my family, then I'm not giving the attention to them, then there's a hole there. So there's only so much that you can give if you want to keep your family together, say you want to keep your business intact, you want to keep your health intact, but you make that change or you affect that change through your little circle. And if all the little circles are healthy, the whole is healthy.
it's homeostasis. You don't have a busted up knee and a healthy rest of the body. I wasn't challenging your point, but I mean, it's like just a huge load. Like you and I joked, if we wanted to, we could help a bunch of people become county board people or councilmen, not for nefarious reasons, but like, hey, let's just get everybody that we want into office, and we could probably invest 5 years of our life and do it. Like, I don't have a doubt in my mind that if we decided to do that, we could. Not because we're rich or famous or anything, because it's like we know the steps. Just like if you were to say, hey, I can take a dude off the street and help him become a black belt, it gave me 10 years.
But Dan, you were on city council before. You were a council member, and I mean, just in the conversations we've had, one of the things that you expressed that you didn't want to do that anymore was, there's a certain time commitment, but also it was such a struggle to get anything done.
Which is his red tape.
You just felt like, what is I'm wasting all this time trying to help change my community and trying to make other people's lives better and instill these changes, but nothing gets done. It's such a long, arduous process.
I understand how it got there, but the way that at least local government is set up, I think it's very difficult to, as a single council member certainly, but to get change going. It's what I talked about, you know, there's committees on committees that report to committees to make a recommendation to do this, and nothing happens fast. It's also why in other businesses you see, you know, larger corporations can't shift as fast when things happen because they have all these processes and red tape to go through, whereas a smaller business can say, okay, starting tomorrow, we're changing what we're doing. You know, so
Imagine if we took all of our ideas and just implemented them on a local level. Critical thinking for young students who understand finances, who understand how to get an education, who appreciate limited government and lack of red tape. You know, my thing would be to reinforce a complete understanding of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and how it applies then and today, and a study of Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Locke, the people that all of that stuff was drafted from, because that stuff's not taught anymore. And like, if all that stuff was like just in a community, that'd be pretty freaking cool. And that starts with like a bunch of dudes. It used to be like in a room smoking cigars, like, here's what we're gonna do.
I think you should start a Reddit forum for it.
Is this like Spinners, like Reddit? I don't even know what that is. Drew, what do you think about all this stuff? So you guys that don't see Drew, who's behind the camera, Drew spent years manipulating and massaging, not in a bad way, politics. I mean, that was your thing. You put people into state level government. You've worked at from the most basic all the way up to state level government. Like, what do you think, based in, and you're educated at a college level on this?
Sure, it's complicated. I look at rhetoric and persuasion the way you guys do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A lot of it's just a matter of how much time and talent you want to invest. You can get really far without just by devoting all your time, or resources help too. But I don't know, as far as like shaping the minds of the public and how people view things, that's every day. There's democracy is kind of a big free for all. We have a saying in political science: democracy is not a spectator sport. It's are you going to be one of the sheep, or are you going to be one of the people that steps out there as a leader? And for those who try to carry the flag and lead in a particular direction, there's immense competition. So,
what would you do if you were president?
Storm Congress? I don't know.
Since you're editing this, you can leave that or take it. I have no political affiliations or ties to the man behind the camera.
Right.
I just thought that it would be interesting to chat something off topic but what I like about like what we just talked about is literally we came up with a half a dozen dissimilar ideas that all support the other though. Education and awareness, better government, working with kids and students. And that's, at the end of the day, I always see like even the people on the polar opposite of politics, like unless they're an evil person, and I don't mean evil because they are for something we don't agree in, all of them want the same thing, like life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. They want to go on the long walks on the beach. Do you guys see that?
For the most part,
Like we were
that's
talking,
pretty fair, because most people, just prior to recent times, people were slightly left, slightly right of center, and then we started to see the polarization. But the core tenets of life are appreciated for the most part equally. and they want the general basics to be good for
Like
everyone.
I think if every one of us went to a Christmas party with average family in any town USA, like if they just let us show up on Christmas Eve and no politics was talked about, but that family happened to be polar opposites and they were welcoming and inviting and let you in their home, you'd have a gay old time, and if no long as no politics were talked about.
Well, this is the cultural thing that we were talking about during the podcast and making that cultural connection. What's the hot button topic? I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about a human subject. I want to make a human connection with you, and it doesn't involve politics or ideology.
But I can't get past that thing. It's like when you find out an actor or actress or whatever you call them now, amen, woman, has a certain political leaning. It's like, I'm never watching his movies again, or I'm never going to buy one of their CDs again, or one of their 8-tracks or whatever. Records. You guys are tired. You ready for some Mexican food? Yeah. What do they call you? What's your nickname?
Yours, you know what it is.
No, better not put that. Don't put that on the internet.
You know what?
Don't
You
put
know what
that on
he's
the
talking
internet.
about.
By the circle of musicians who we are snacks. Let me tell you something. Being on the road, there's a lot of downtime when you're a trim coordinator.
Oh yeah, nice.
When you're a trim coordinator, you got a lot of downtime.
So for those of you that don't know what that is, Google it.
There's a lot of downtime and catering is always open.
Let's do this. We covered a bunch of ground, had some jokes. Let's go around the circle. If you never saw these people ever in your life, it's the only time you ever got to chat with them. What would you say, Canaan?
Thanks for listening and educate yourselves.
That's pretty succinct.
Yeah.
How about you, sir?
Find a way to connect with something you love, something you can do, something that fulfills you on multiple levels. And obviously for this group of people, it's jiu-jitsu, right? We all agree that we get all these components out of jiu-jitsu and we're better people for it, and we help serve the community and build bridges that way. So whatever it is, doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It can be whatever is fulfilling for you on multiple levels.
Cool. How about you?
Put everything aside. Start getting together with the people. You stop talking because of political stuff. Find something you like. Keep learning. Never miss an opportunity to keep learning and experience new things. And make sure you see Dan's socks whenever you meet him.
How about you, Henry?
Success doesn't happen overnight, so whatever you want to be successful at, start today. And you just start with a little bit. That was one of the things for me during this quarantine. Never ran my whole life and wanted to start running and work my way up from running a quarter mile to 5 miles a night. So just start off little, whatever you want to do.
It sounds horrible.
How
But
many
I
snacks
appreciate it.
How many snacks in between?
Snacks in between? Oh, lots of snacks.
Run to the taco stand and back. How about you, Dan?
You're never going to find happiness accumulating things or money, but you might find happiness by giving away information and helping other people. So I think a lot of people tend to focus on accumulating things, even knowledge for themselves. But for me, through jiu-jitsu and other things, leadership trainings, being able to focus out on other people and help them be better people and help create leaders who can in turn create leaders, I think that's a good step on the way to finding some happiness.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the time. You guys all have a lot of important things to add. Honored to know all of you and get to spend time with you, even the one who I used to change his diaper, my nephew. Weird part was some of that was in his teen years, but that's cool. And Drew worked very hard. You guys that
Thanks,
watch
Drew.
this,
No problem.
we appreciate you. If you got anything out of this that's valuable, humorous, interesting, we'll throw some links up. You can email these guys. You can find them. You can ask questions. You might see one of Henry's events up that you can sign up for. You can come and connect with Dan for some of his training events, this guy's stuff.
Todd's now doing civilian training, which is the first time, which is such an awesome. I've been to 2 of them now, and it's so cool because I've known Todd for 20-something years, but it's the first time he's now offering training for civilians.
Why don't you guys throw your websites out real quick?
HiddenJujitsu.com.
Tourprotection.com or @tourtraining on Instagram.
Protection for Humanity on Instagram.
deepandwide.org and
You can link out on my stuff at hartalliance.com.
Hart Alliance. How about you? How do they
Buy
find
some
you?
gunfighter gun oil.
Buy some gun.
Keep it wet.
You're on Instagram. You're
At Canaan Holdener.
At
CANAANHOLDENER.
also known as The Hole. Good kid. But honestly, if you enjoyed the conversation, if you found anything that was valuable, share it with people. Not because it helps us, but if it was valuable, share it. That's what we're talking about, not just being so concerned about yourself. If it resonated with you, like it, subscribe, all those good things, and don't be a dickhead, because nobody likes a dickhead. And that's all. Let's go get some tacos. Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com.
I said I got me some gunfighter gun oil. Gunfighter gun oil, baby. Gunfighter gun oil, no more gunfighter blues. Made in the USA, amazing lubricity. 100% synthetic, baby. So it's gonna last you longer. So go on CarryTrainer.com and order yourself some gunfighter gun oil, gunfighter lube, to get rid of your gunfighter blues. I said go on and order yourself some gunfighter lube. Gunfighter lube. Yeah!